Welcome to Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, where we bring evidence, experience, and perspective to make sense of today's leading health challenges. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes.
It's Lindsay Smith Rogers. Today on the podcast, your skin might crawl a little because we're talking about lice and bedbugs. Conor McMeniman is a microbiologist at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and he returns to the podcast to discuss these itchy insects, how they spread, what to do about them, and why the key is not to panic. Let's listen. Conor McMeniman, welcome back to Public Health on Call. How are you?
Good, thank you, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So today we're going to talk about two really fun topics. We're going to talk about lice and bed bugs. Before we launch into that, would you just tell us a little bit about your work at the Bloomberg School and what you study?
Yeah, absolutely. So my research program here at Bloomberg School of Public Health focuses on mosquitoes. In particular, we're interested in understanding how mosquitoes find humans, the mechanics of that process, and how we can leverage that information to create new strategies to prevent mosquito bites.
But you've also done a little bit of research. Apparently, you know something about lice and bed bugs, other very irritating insects.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an undergraduate in Australia, where I'm from, I had the honor of working on something that's closely related to head lice, the human body louse or clothes louse, which throughout human history has actually spread a lot of nasty diseases that have affected humanity, particularly during wartime. But that's an aside. Today we're here to talk about head lice, which are much more common and also a little bit less harmful.
Okay, so well, here you kind of set up my first question because you said louse, but we say lice. What is a lice? What is a louse? Is it the plural? What is it?
Exactly. So louse is singular, lice is plural. Often when you're infested by head lice, there's as many of them in your hair. And it's worth noting that the lice that we find in our hair have been with us for millennia, potentially. And there are also closely related lice species that also occupy our clothes as well. But those are very uncommon and only typically found in wartime or during sort of civil unrest where you can't really change your clothes very much.
And so what is a louse? Are they little tiny, do they fly? They live in your hair? What are they?
Yeah, lice are actually insects. They're blood-sucking insects, much like mosquitoes or sandflies. And they're dorsoventrally flattened, which it basically just means they're flattened like a pancake. They're very good at sort of grabbing onto fibers and hairs. They have sort of hooks on their front legs, which allow them to grasp onto hair. And these live almost exclusively on the human host. So they need to live on humans in order to obtain blood, which is their meal, basically. They eat lunch, breakfast, dinner on the human host, feeding on you multiple times per day.
And so only humans get them, not animals.
Yeah, there's different lice species that occur in nature, and they're very, very closely associated with different animal hosts. So pigeons, for instance, have their own lice. Dogs may have their own lice. Elephants have lice, believe it or not. Seals have lice, albeit different species. But the ones that occur on humans are incredibly specialized to live in association with humans. So you will never find, for instance, an elephant louse on a human and vice versa.
Well, that's good to know. But so how do people get lice and what are the symptoms?
Yes. So typically head lice occur most commonly in school-age children, and they're spread directly by human-to-human contact. So when you're sort of in close association with another individual, lice will transfer from the head of one person to the other. Other common ways in which they can be transferred, albeit probably less important, include shared objects, which are called fomites, is a scientific term. But those probably play a smaller role than direct head-to-head contact. And as we're all social individuals, particularly as children, it's very, very hard to control humans interacting with each other. So it's something that we have to live with and learn to live with and move on.
And so how do you know if you have head lice?
Yeah, so one of the signs is typically if you see small, what are called nits, which are small white eggs. And typically, if you're looking at your child or another individual, if you look at the back of the neck, you lift up the hair at the back of the neck or around the ears, you'll often see the nits glued to the hair close to the base of the hair. So that's one sign that you might be infested with human head lice. Another one is potentially if your child is itching quite a lot on their hair. As I mentioned, the lice actually move onto the scalp to blood feed multiple times daily. When they do that, they actually spit into the skin to be able to facilitate that blood feeding process. And during that, they also spit into you a range of different molecules that make you feel lousy. I think everyone's heard that term, I feel lousy. That's because it comes from what it feels like to be infested with head lice. The other sign, of course, is if you see adult lice or juvenile lice in the hair, you'll see insects crawling around in the hair. That's another really, key sign that you're infested with head lice.
Are they dangerous?
No. So head lice are not dangerous at all. The first thing if you see an infestation is not to panic. It's not a sign of anything really. Don't panic is the key message. They're incredibly common in school-age children, both here within the United States, but also around the world. Basically, in every country, school-age children will be infested with head lice.
But adults can get them.
Adults can get them, yes. That's
Okay.
true. And so it's important to note when you have an infestation in your household to check everyone in the household.
And then what do you do to get rid of it?
Yes. So to get rid of head lice is a process. As I mentioned, the female louse will actually lay its eggs on the hair fiber, and those nits or eggs take around 7 days to hatch. And so what you can do, a simple way you can treat head lice infestations is to actually place conditioner in the hair. And using a special comb called a louse comb, which you can get from a pharmacy, actually just comb your child's hair daily, put conditioner in, and then using the fine-toothed comb those adult stages that have hatched from those eggs out for about a week and a half. That will actually, by combing the conditioner out onto paper towel and thoroughly doing this every night, you'll be able to clear the infestation in about a week and a half using conditioner. There are also shampoos that you can buy from pharmacies that also have insecticidal ingredients in them. Those are also effective as well. But again, following labeling instructions and ensuring treatment according to labeling instructions for about a week and a half to 2 weeks will ensure that you get rid of the infestation from your home.
And this is probably going to veer a little bit into the next conversation we're going to have, but is there anything you need to do about like bedding or hats or cleaning these kinds of things?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, shared objects such as bedding or combs, they're probably minor routes of transmission of these particular insects between individual humans within a household. But yes, laundering, sheets, sterilizing combs, laundering hats, it's never a bad idea, but it's probably a minor role. So the most important thing is, again, not to panic. These are incredibly common. They're everywhere. But just to, focus on trying to implement a treatment regimen that will clear those adult lice from the head and the juvenile lice that are hatching out from that bank of eggs that they've laid next to the scalp.
Last question for you about this. I remember when I was in school, kids being sent home from school because of head lice and periodic checks. Is that still how it's handled?
Yeah, so typically when people detect head lice infestations within a classroom, a message will be sent home notifying people of the fact that there's head lice in the classroom. And you're right, guidance has changed throughout the year. They're overall, not harmful to children. And so there's sort of a balance between the nuisances that they cause and the educational trade-offs of not being in school. And so it varies by region. The CDC and also the American Society for Pediatrics recommends that children, if they're found to be infested, complete the school day and then they return to school once the adult lice have been cleared of their hair. Simply having evidence of nits or those eggs on the hair surface is not sufficient to warrant not being in school. So the most important thing, again, is keep calm, carry on, and comb them out and treat with the insecticidal shampoos according to your preferences.
So hopefully a little bit less stigma these days.
Yes. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to destigmatize the condition. They don't choose a cause according to socioeconomic status as well. They're incredibly common everywhere amongst all school-age children, no matter where you look in the world.
So let's shift a little bit here and talk about bed bugs. What is a bed bug?
Yeah, so I think bed bugs are everyone's worst nightmare, but bed bugs are actually flattened insects. They're different from lice. They belong to a different family of insects belonging to the bugs. And bed bugs, also blood-sucking insects, they need to feed on different hosts. As opposed to head lice, bed bugs are much more, I guess, opportunistic in what they feed on. But typically the ones that are found in and around your bedroom are feeding predominantly on humans within the household. These organisms don't really live on the human host, but rather live inside crevices and cracks and seams around sort of upholstery and also beds as well, which is where they get their name. They will come out typically at nighttime and feed on sleeping humans to get their blood meal. Yeah, so that's where the bed bugs get their name, is that they're typically found in the bedroom feeding on sleeping humans.
Do they itch?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So bed bugs, like lice, insert their mouth parts into the skin to obtain that blood meal. And typically they can take a blood meal once a week. Bed bugs can also be incredibly long-lived, surviving for many, many months. And they can also go without blood for up to a month at a time. So they're quite resilient, if you would like to say, insects.
So when you said before that they're everyone's worst nightmare, is that why they're just like really hard to get rid of?
Yeah. Well, they're also very common, believe it or not, in hotels, backpacker hostels, that they're found in various places where you find cracks and crevices. So no one likes to bring bed bugs home, but it's important to note as well that there are ways to sort of treat your household, get rid of them as well, if you are infested with bed bugs.
So if I go to, say, an Airbnb or something, is there something I should look for or check?
Yes. Yeah, I would say when you first arrive at a hotel or an Airbnb, if you note little blood spots, what look like blood spots around the bed skirt or the seams of the bed, yeah, then you should, perhaps go speak to management, perhaps move on to alternative accommodation. You can also inspect the seams of the bed, the seams of the mattress, just to see whether you can visually observe bed bugs or, again, signs of blood spots around those areas. Those might be signs that the room is infested with bed bugs. I think that, a large majority of hotels these days make sure that they survey the sites, but it's just important to be aware and cognizant that these insects are sort of out in the environment.
So they can get, I guess, in your luggage or something, and then you can bring them home?
Yeah, bed bugs are the professional hitchhikers of the insect world. So definitely they can get into your suitcases if you leave them open. And yeah, you can unknowingly bring them home.
And what do you do if you have bed bugs in your house?
Yeah. So there's various options that you can use to treat bed bugs. The first thing that I would recommend doing is calling a professional pest controller that deals with bed bugs. There's various methods that you can use to eliminate bed bugs from your home. As I mentioned, the bed bugs typically like to live in crevices in and around the bedroom, cracks in walls. They can also lay their eggs in nail holes, for instance, that are on your walls. They're incredibly adapted to living in and around humans. And given the fact that they're sort of flattened, they can creep into crevices. So in terms of treating it, bedbug infestations, there's a variety of options. As I mentioned, they're long-lived. They can go a long time without a blood meal. And so typically what people will do is they'll utilize fumigation-based treatments, insecticide-based treatments as well, or even heat-based treatments to basically eliminate the bed bugs within that that room. It might involve also, if there's a severe infestation, removing bedding, for instance, as well from that. But it typically is a multi-week process to rid your home of bed bugs. And I think the best thing that you could do is contact a pest control professional.
In Baltimore here, we have these things called row houses, which are houses with walls that touch in a row, I have heard a rumor that if you have bed bugs in one row house, they can actually travel to the other homes on that block. Is that true?
Yes, that's accurate. And that also occurs in hotels. They can move between rooms. Again, all you can really do is to watch out. I think that's quite uncommon, but if you do notice an infestation in your household, definitely get on the phone as soon as possible. Again, don't panic. They're not harmful. They don't spread disease, which is a very interesting facet actually of the bed bug, given the fact that they're in association with humans. So often there's no good epidemiological evidence that they actually can spread different diseases. So that's one plus, I guess.
So they're just annoying.
They're just annoying, exactly. And, I'm itchy, talking about them as well.
Yeah, I've definitely been sitting over here just... Well, thank you very much, Conor McMeniman, for being here to talk with us about this lovely topic.
Thanks very much, Lindsay.
Public Health on Call is a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith Rogers, Stephanie Desmond, and Rachel Walsh. Audio production by Michael Bonfils, Matthew Martin, and Philip Porter, with support from J.B. Arbogast, Spencer Greer, and Chip Hickey. Distribution and social media by Rachel Walsh, with support from Nick Moran and Brianna Iacovelli. Follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at Public Health Pod for more public health takes and special content. If you have questions or ideas for us, please send an email to publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Thank you for listening.